Howdy folks, Mike here with the cheapest ride, and today I want to give you a quick overview of 4 things I absolutely love about my 2020 Lifan KPM200. Now for the uninitiated, this is a $3,000 fuel-injected sport naked bike, and to be honest, the value that this thing brings to the table is immense. For the price, there's really nothing like it. And I want to go over 4 things in my year of ownership that I've noticed that have really stood out to me as some of my favorite features on this machine. So first and foremost, let's just talk about the elephant in the room, and that's the design. This thing is not built like a $3,000 motorcycle. Hell, it's not even built like a $5,000 one. The design is just, superb is probably the easiest way to start describing it. The headlight is phenomenal. Everything on this bike is LED. Hell, the gauges are all LCD, so you've got a full digital display there, and we'll get into that in a second. But just in terms of the way it looks, I really feel like this bike is a masterclass in design. We have this gorgeous LED daytime running light here, and well, it's also really, really bright. Let's turn that on. But when you see it kind of adjusted for focus there, it's got this absolutely cool kind of glowing light look to it. And let me tell you, when it's in real life too, that's not just the camera, it actually looks like it. It's a really cool design. You can see coming along the side here, there are some really cool tank lines, body lines around that tank there. You've got a little groove for your legs to sit in, and it does fit pretty well. When you are on the motorcycle, your thighs tend to hug that decently well. At least enough to the point where I really don't want to slap a tank grip on it because it just looks so good as it stands. You can see the silhouette of the bike kind of evokes that old 70s cafe racer style to it. You've got a pretty wide, flat banana seat on it. It is raised a little bit for a passenger and to accommodate for the fender and the wheel. Other than that though, it looks pretty great. You see here along the back, actually let me go and turn the lights on again so you can see it. Along the tail light, they do this faux neon thing. Again, this is just LEDs, but they make it look really cool. And for a basic little running light, once the brake light comes on, they are just standard LED bulbs in there. But the daytime running lights just look fantastic. Makes this bike feel a lot more than $3,000. So that's kind of number 1 on the list there. When you buy this bike, you feel like you really kind of bought a work of art, and the way people kind of gawk at it on the street and in the parking lots, it kind of makes you feel like you did. It's fun. It's really fun. I love getting asked questions. What the hell is that? What are you riding? And then getting to kind of explain what on earth someone's looking at. Second of all, the next biggest thing that I love about this bike is the digital display, which we'll look at right now. First thing you notice when you are sitting on the bike, there's nothing on the handlebars. I've got a phone holder on it right now, but other than that, it's a clean cockpit. And all of your gauges are all right here. So this is a single digital display. It does everything, and it's actually got a decent amount of information. Now, this is an LCD, not a TFT panel, which means, as you can see, those numbers are hard-coded. You can't really change what's on the display, but I have found it pretty useful. So I'm going to fire this guy up here, and you can see, first and foremost, we have our 24-hour clock right up at the top there. You can't change that to a 12-hour, so you're kind of stuck with that, which is a minor annoyance, but I'm still fine with it. Then you have your speedo. This can change between miles an hour or kilometers an hour, depending on your preference there. And an odometer with a trip count feature too, if you're looking for that. The fuel gauge there is pretty accurate. It has a 6-bar limit there. Actually, I've got about 3/4 of a tank in it right now, but it shows lower because the fuel tank sensor is on this side. So when it's kicked over on a kickstand and tilted ever so slightly, it does actually show the fuel's off. But once you go riding, that's not a concern anymore. You have a gear indicator after that. If I pop this guy into neutral real quick, you can see we do have a neutral light and separate blinker lights, which is really handy actually. I found myself, it's one of those comfort things, but the fact that you get any sort of creature comforts on a bike this cheap kind of says a lot, which is really why I like it. Moving back from the tank here, and I won't talk about the styling too much, but you can see it's got this racing stripe to it. It kind of feels like something ripped out of the 70s and then made modern with that LED in the back. This thing kind of feels like some sort of retro neo-modern take of, an old cafe racer, and that was the idea. It just looks sick, and if you talk to anyone, this is usually the biggest reason they pick this bike up at first, or at least the reason they look at it, because it looks awesome. So again, number 2 is that dash. It's useful. The big thing I'll tell you is if you're reprogramming the clock, for those of you who first get it, and you maybe didn't find this in the manual because they kind of gloss over it, this right button will reset the clock. The left button is going to reset your trip odometer, and if you hold it down when you're on the main screen, it'll change you over from miles to kilometers. maintenance interval on this bike is actually pretty easy going there. It is in kilometers though, and if you don't want to bother to convert, you can always check really easily. Third thing that I absolutely love about this motorcycle, hands down, is the sound. I'm in a quiet place right now, so I won't rev it here, but let me go ahead and drop in a video real quick of us revving the engine up to redline. And then let me go ahead and show you a flyby here too. Not a bad sound at all. I absolutely love the way the stock pipes sound, and the nice thing about it is it's not terribly loud, so when you are driving around and you don't want to upset the neighbors at night, especially if you're going for a nighttime joyride, it's not distracting to the point where you're going to piss people off, which for a beginner bike I like. Thirdly, one of my favorite things about this motorcycle, or as dumb as it sounds here, the fourth thing I love is the key. The key just looks awesome. And a lot of these cheaper bikes, especially like a Grom or even a Super Cub, kind of have boring Honda keys. These things have this really cool sport bike key. It kind of makes you feel like a millionaire. And I'll be honest, every now and then I whip it out hoping to impress someone because, well, frankly, it impresses me to this day. And then fifth, the last thing that I absolutely love about this motorcycle would be the overall performance. Now, it's a small bike, but it is really nimble on its feet. And that's kind of one of the things I love. This bike is anywhere from about 230 to 300 pounds, depending on who you ask. But I'll tell you from experience, it handles like a bicycle. You can whip this thing around in corners. If you want to skid the rear out a little bit, there's no ABS from factory to hold you down. So if you want to kind of play with it, you can. For experienced riders, you can have a lot of fun. For people who are just getting into it, though, I was able to learn to ride on this thing with my only prior experience being a bicycle. And, well, I'll say it, this thing has been an amazing learning tool for me. I've learned to really explore corners, push myself a little bit, but also have some fun. I've swung the rear out on this. This bike was the first bike I ever wheelied in. And, all the time it felt stable and easy to work with. So if you're looking for a cheap bike that you can have a stupid amount of fun with, well, here's the KPM200 from Lifan. And if you ask me, this is slowly becoming the best beginner bike you can find, especially under $5,000. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any other questions in the comments, let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. Take care. I'm Mike.